comprehensive regulation of tobacco products of the Oak Park Village Code.
So moved.
Second.
I get Artie and Dino. Kara, you have public comments on that after Kara?
Yes.
All right, Kara.
Thank you. As the board may recall, on July 22nd, you held a first reading regarding this ordinance and reviewed recommendations of the Board of Health. Board of Health Chair Florence Miller is here this evening, as well as Public Health Director Mike Charlie. You do have two ordinances before you. One contains the recommendations of the Board of Health, and then the second ordinance includes specific requests from the board at the first meeting regarding enforcement activities related to minors. And so again, the chair of the Board of Health here is to answer questions, and I believe we also were able to incorporate those items that the board asked for in terms of further banning of products. And we were also able to notify businesses of the pending second reading in between the duration of the first reading and this time.
All right, great. Let's hear the public comments, please.
Kelly O'Connor.
Good evening, President and trustees. My name is Kelly O'Connor. I'm a resident of Oak Park. I'm also the Prevention Services Manager at Oak Park Township. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of myself. While I applaud the recommendation by the Board of Health to ban e-cigarette, this flavored, and the skins, I really want to address the second part of that, and that's the enforcement. I think that we need to do a little bit more of educating of the board of some of the processes that have actually been going on in the village since about 2010. I will refer to a trustee's comment about we don't want the police going around and giving tickets and citations to minors. I can assure you, as someone that works with kids that come through the adjudication process, I don't believe police are doing that here in the village. If anything, they are going to be the first point of contact to allow that youth to get help. Families acting collaboratively to educate and involve teens was a response by the community with the police department, with the District 90, 97, and District 200 as an alternative to an out-of-school suspension. So I would literally really implore you to do your homework a little bit more before making comments like that. While I cannot say with fact that that does not happen, I do know that we do not have a lot of kids that come through that program with a citation for an e-cigarette or a tobacco product. Again, it's a restorative practice in the sense that the parent and the child participate together to be educated on not just life skills and drug, but communication skills as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a question, Kelly?
Sure. Go ahead,
So you have the FACET program?
FACET, yes.
FACET program, right. That's what I thought it's called. Tell us just a little bit more about that program.
So
Is it for smoking? And
it's for really alcohol and marijuana have pretty much predominantly been the majority of the kids that come through the program. Again, it was a community response because it literally, to that fact, we didn't want kids just to get in trouble because that doesn't do anyone any good. It doesn't do anyone any good if they're suspended from school. So as we know, in prevention and education with addiction or substance use as an adolescent, there typically are other things going on. Substance use pretty much is a symptom to something else. So this is an early intervention prevention program that has been, again, in the community since about 2010. We've helped over 200 families because the parents and the students participate together. While it's a consequence, it's not meant to be punitive. It's proactive in providing education and information.
And how do you get the referrals if it's not
So
through tickets?
we typically get the referrals through, right now we get them through the River Forest Police Department and also the Oak Park Police Department, and then on referral from District 200. We had, at one time, we did have middle and high school kids, so we would split the groups of students together. It's also on voluntary basis. So if you're a parent that has been struggling or you need some education in that department, you can absolutely call. It's a free program that's provided to Oak Park and River Forest residents. There's 5, 8, or 12 sessions. So it really just depends on what the circumstances are. But again, if there was a party and kids were given a citation, they would participate in this program. There's no record, no fine. It's all very restorative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, this is an agenda item, so I'll call you at that time. Thank you.
All right.
I could ask Florence a question, too.
That's cool.
Can I ask
Yeah,
Florence a question?
Florence, come on up to the,
Hey, thanks. So, just before the meeting, we were handed a handout from the American Heart Association, and what they're, we are trying, it's hard to read things at the last minute like that, but what the one thing they're recommending is that our definition of flavored tobacco products, where it says imparts a characterizing flavor that contain nicotine in, and then they're suggesting that we strike out liquid non-leaf and substitute any form. So any form of tobacco that's flavored. And I wonder, did you guys consider that, or do you have a comment on that at all? Because I know they're not here.
We actually did not consider that. We considered the information that you all have. I think part of that is because of the new material that's coming out through the Centers for Disease Control in terms of them doing investigate. This is changing every minute we speak. And so as new information and new evidence is coming out, then new recommendations are being made. So I just briefly glanced at that. I'm not familiar with that, so I don't really want to speak to something I haven't really researched, if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
No, that's fine. I don't know what other forms there are, or if you knew that.
There's,
Do you want to?
I know some people who smoke pipes.
Okay.
And I know that there's a flavored, some of that pipe tobacco is flavored.
Okay.
So, I mean, that would certainly fall under any, so, and I don't know that there's any place in town that sells it. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I do know it exists.
Okay.
Make the
I think
motion.
it's worth, I would move that we adopt this change to any form of tobacco.
Second.
Yeah.
I'd second that, if we can do that,
Yeah.
if it's possible.
There's
Any,
okay, let's see what else discussion before we
Okay.
go on.
Can we just repeat, what did we just move on?
So the definition of flavored tobacco products
This one?
would be changed. It's under section 861 to change the first sentence where it says any tobacco or electronic cigarette product that contains a constituent that imparts a characterizing flavor that which would be contains, plural, nicotine in, instead of liquid, non-leaf, it would be in any form. And then it goes on to describe the cocoa, vanilla, dessert flavors, et cetera.
Trustee Walker Pettigotla and Andrews first and seconded the original motion.
Oh, just a second, please, Vicki. Paul, is there any issue with what you just heard about the legalities of any of
Yeah,
this stuff?
it could be legal, but it will reach, as Trustee Andrews said, flavored pipe tobacco, menthol cigarettes, the flavored cigars that you can buy as well. So it'll be far-reaching.
Okay. All right.
So it
Go
wouldn't
ahead.
just be limited to electronic cigarettes?
No, it'd be all tobacco.
Be all tobacco.
Yeah.
Including menthol
I
cigarettes.
know.
So is the only change crossing out liquid non-leaf and putting any form?
Why does
Do
it
we
have to
know?
be any form?
So that you can include.
Leaf, or,
Or any other,
I guess.
I think, products coming down the line. I think this person's not here.
Yeah, they're not here, but I'm just trying to
Is
understand.
that an overkill?
In my opinion, it is. There's long established flavored tobaccos and cigars and pipes.
Yeah.
And I get the ethic, and I,
Yeah.
stand behind it 100%. But this is geared toward, children, and not having flavors that are going to attract. But I don't see a lot of kids smoking old man pipes, with flavored tobacco in it. So I would be careful that we not overextend too much on this and go after every sort of cigar and pipe that adults usually partake in.
I guess, is there such a thing as like chocolate
Yes.
and, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Smoking tobacco?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Chocolate cigars.
Yeah, I don't,
No, not chocolate
I mean,
cigars.
really, I
No,
just don't know.
There's vanilla flavor,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of flavor.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's
They're
hard to do this.
disgusting and completely nasty,
Yeah.
but they exist and people smoke them.
Yeah, I would certainly want to hear from the American Heart Association, but I think at the very last minute, it's very hard to digest what they're suggesting. it's just too
I'd
late.
like to suggest maybe we go with the original, and then we can look at this, and if there's legitimacy behind this, but I think it's hard to make that, I mean, we literally just got handed this.
Yeah.
I don't even know that the American Heart Association handed this out.
All right, so there's a motion on the table to eliminate everything. Do
No.
you want to take a roll on that?
Well,
Do I need a motion? Do I need to see if there is a direction on that, Paul?
Well, it would be up to the original trustee,
amend
the
the
motion
motions.
to amend the motion. That's
Okay, the
correct.
motion before, I think it was I thought it was Artie, and do you know, was it?
And me, yeah.
Okay.
What would you like to do?
Well, I'll withdraw the motion to amend it. I think it's something that if we find this is
Thank you.
something, maybe we could address it later, because I just don't, it's kind of hard to do with the very last
Thank
minute.
you.
Yeah.
That's good.
I also think, though, we need to decide if we're going to incorporate which version we're going to use.
Can I make a comment on that? I would say that I thank the staff for making the changes that we had requested in the first reading of this, where we removed the language of purchase and possession of tobacco products by minors. I do not agree with the Board of Health's version or with the comments made by Kelly, because adjudication is still a part of the criminalization process. Families that go through adjudication have to take time out of their day. It costs money, it costs time, and it's just not needed. So I think that the comments that were made by the board the very first time that we heard this, which was the board was generally in agreement with the idea of removing the language of purchase and possession of, we should stay with that version and not adopt the Board of Health version.
All right. Any other comments? Dan?
I just am wondering if the police chief could speak to the adjudication element of this, and just, I respect your, perspective and think it's valuable, but I just kind of, I think in the last meeting, which I was not here, we were wondering how citations were issued. And as I look at the citations, I see 13 citations since 2014, 7 of which were in 2014, 0 in 2019 to date, and 3 in 27 and 2018. So I think any concerns about citations being issued, I think that gives me a level of comfort that citations aren't being issued. But I just would be interested in hearing what the police chiefs,
Sure.
how we're hearing two perspectives on the adjudication, and I just would like to learn a little bit more.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good
Board.
evening.
LaDon Reynolds, Chief of Police. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I guess just, so if you have a youth who is using these types of substances and they go through the adjudication process, do you feel that it's onerous, that it's a process that is unnecessary? Is there any good that comes out of it? I mean, we've heard that there's negative, and I'm very sympathetic with that perspective, but I just wanted to, am I missing anything?
No, I don't think so. I think, again, when it comes to interacting with the youth, from a police perspective, our mandate is to follow the Juvenile Court Act. Mm-hmm. And our primary focus is not to adjudicate or enforce the law. It's really to redirect the trajectory of the behavior. I think the adjudication process helps us in doing that because it gives an objective party the opportunity to look at the facts of the case, and then there are a myriad of options for them to offer to the youth to, again, change the trajectory of their behavior. You talk about the police mandate, which is part of that is to oversee the health, welfare, and safety of the community. Kids smoking tobacco, kids using vaping devices, things of that nature, it's not healthy. And so I think it's a good thing for us to be involved in. And the adjudication process helps to facilitate that change in trajectory.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that gives me mostly what I was looking for.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I actually believe in the Face It program. I believe that the township has developed some programs that are restorative and that do help. And I think that referring people to prevention and intervening for positive outcomes is sort of our goal.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I could see if we were fining kids $250, right? But, I mean, we could even amend the language to just say referral to a program, because it's, what does it say? It says something about fines, et cetera, and we could just say the outcome is just referral to the program as a kind of a compromise position. Violators may be ordered to complete a community-based education, counseling, or treatment program.
Right.
I think that would be where I would go with that.
Yeah. I think the story is that in the history of modern policing, we've never arrested our way out of any problem. And so it takes the entire community, the village, the township, partnership with D200 and all the other stakeholders to help move our youth into a more positive light and make sure that they're getting the information they need so that they're not headed down the wrong path, whether it's tobacco or what have you.
Go ahead, Dino.
I actually have some questions about the Face It program, so I don't know, maybe you want to stay there, or I don't.
If you have a seat on the front seat,
Yeah.
Chief, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. If you stand up, right, great, thanks.
Yes, please, that way the people on TV and the internet can hear you.
Wonderful.
Yes, exactly. All 12 people.
I'm getting
watching.
lots of practice up here.
Good. How long has the Face It program been around?
So we started a pilot program, I believe it was in 2010, and we did that program for about 6 months. The program comes from Florida. It was a program that was developed with a school district as an alternative to out-of-school suspensions. So we went, two of the youth service director and one of the interventionists went and visited the program. We brought the developer of the program back to Oak Park after many community members came together and said that this was going to be the answer. The adjudication process changed because a lot of our kids, when they would get a citation, were sent to Maywood. So we kept it home, and we offered the education and the information program for parents to participate as well.
Got it. Do you track the efficacy of the program? Like these kids that go through the program, are there data that suggests that behaviors have changed?
Yes, there is. So there's a very low recidivism rate.
Okay.
And for the program itself, down in Florida, it was as like 1%, 2%.
Okay. Because I share Trustee Walker-Petticola's opinion on this, that even just the words, I work with ex-offenders in my day life, and even just the language around it, recidivism and adjudication. So I am sensitive to that, and I share her
And so
concerns.
are we. So
Yeah.
we know that it's very difficult. The program is on Thursday evenings from 6 to 8. We have a very, if someone cannot make it that night, that's fine. It's a rolling basis. So if someone misses the class, they don't have to start over. Every night is independent of itself.
Got it. Do people take the class or the program voluntarily ever?
Yes, we have had.
Okay. Well, is there a way to, I wonder if there's a way for us to lessen the language around the criminalization of it and adjudication and recidivism, and I wonder if there's a way to get kids that need the help in the program without necessarily having it wrapped around.
Yes, so the social workers know at the schools that if they have a family that is struggling or needs additional supports, that this program is available. The other thing that we do is there's also assessments. We can do early screenings now. So if a parent is, suspicious or scared, doesn't know what to do, I get a lot of calls just like, hey, if I don't have the answer, I'm going to find you the answer. So it's just an additional resource that really is non-punitive. The idea is to get kids at an early point, because we don't know whether or not this is the first time they've been using or the second. And the chief could probably answer this question, but I believe that if you were an adolescent that was caught or had a citation for a tobacco product, you'd get a warning. It would be the second time that they caught you. Well, if we have 3,400 students at District 200, and Mr. Maroney, you just said what the statistics were for those getting a citation, you can see that it's really not happening. And again, I have never had anyone at the FACE-IT program for tobacco. It's always been marijuana or alcohol.
Okay. Has anybody in the program ever complained to you about the interaction with the police and getting referred to the program?
No, they have not.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else has any comments? Susan?
So you haven't had any kids
Who do you
come?
wanna talk to?
Sorry, the woman from the township.
Okay, come on back.
Kelly? You haven't had any kids referred to you for a tobacco citation?
No.
And how about kids, families requesting your help for tobacco use?
Well, when I say tobacco, I technically am thinking of a traditional cigarette. Yes, I have had a lot of calls in the past 6 months because of parents that now have a child that's addicted to vaping.
And what do you think would be the effect on the number of kids that you have in your program if the ordinance was changed from and the possession part taken out so that they wouldn't be getting citations? Would that have any effect on the kids that are sent to you?
So can you repeat the question so I make sure that I understand what you're asking?
We're deciding whether to have this issue in the ordinance of whether to have possession of tobacco products be illegal.
Yes.
So if it weren't illegal, how would that affect the number of kids that come to you?
Well, I'm fairly confident that I would still get kids that were using alcohol and marijuana. I would say that vaping, since it's really the device that you're using to deliver the drug, I don't even want to call it an electronic nicotine delivery system anymore because it's just a delivery system. It's hard to say because vaping is relatively new to everybody. I know that I've had an increase of kids that have been in the program because of alcohol or marijuana that have vaped. So that's a new question that we're asking. If you were to change it, I probably would still be getting kids. But I think if it's not there, it's great to have ordinances and policies, but we have to start implementing them and enforcing.
I don't mean to speak for you, but I think Trustee Buchanan means that with not having a citation within the ordinance impact you and impact you doing your job in a negative way. Is that?
Would you get fewer people in your program if we weren't handing out citations?
Citations.
Across the board, not just vaping?
No,
Yes, I would.
We're just talking tobacco products.
If there were no ordinance, yes, we would see a reduction.
okay.
Because why?
Because we wouldn't be seeing kids come through the adjudication process, then they wouldn't be able to be referred to the program.
Okay.
But you're not seeing any kids for just tobacco products.
We're talking about vaping, though. We don't have a lot of kids that are using traditional cigarettes. So again, they're coming to the program usually because it's been alcohol and marijuana. Is there vaping going on? Yes.
But there's no marijuana, there is a marijuana ordinance at the state level.
Well, marijuana is illegal
I think
for
maybe
anyone.
the chief should be answering this line of questioning. I think
Yeah.
it would be more appropriate if the chief could talk about how referrals are made to adjudication and then adjudication refers to face it. I think we're asking somebody who doesn't understand our process to speak to our process.
Okay.
I mean, so if the chief could
Well,
clarify.
I am familiar with the process.
He's the chief of the
He
police,
is the
so
chief.
I
I'm
appreciate
not saying
that.
that he doesn't, yeah.
Okay, let's have the chief.
I just think, Chief, if you could clarify the difference between when you are making contacts with youth and requiring them to come to adjudication for cigarettes or vaping.
Right. So, again, when it comes to tobacco use, our policy is the first interaction is educational. We give them pamphlets, information about the dangers of smoking, and then we contact the parents and let them know that we came in contact with their kid, depending on the age of the minor. If there is a second contact, because we document that contact, then they may be issued a ticket. Now, the ticket would get them in front of the adjudicators, the adjudication department, and that would give the judges there the opportunity to make a decision as to which way they would go, whether it would be community service or refer them to a program. And most of the time, they would refer them to a program. Again, with the ticket, it's not something that we are always issuing, but it's a tool. Okay, I have a difficult time getting my 12-year-old to clean her room. So voluntarily, I don't know how easy it would be for parents to get their kids to, get involved in a program. However, if we have a tool that requires it, and there's some sort of weight of the village behind it, it could serve as a motivator for someone who is less motivated to capitulate. So, does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Anybody else has any other questions before we?
No, I support having the tool. I think that's important, and I think the Face It program is a very good program. I took my kids to it a few years ago and learned great amounts about the drugs, but I think having that tool, having that ability, I don't see the harm. There's not been many people referred anyway, so it's really something to have, and I think we could use it in a good way.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments?
I have some follow-up questions. So I can't remember who said the number of citations that have been issued, but of the number of citations that have been issued for alcohol or tobacco or whatever.
I only have tobacco.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What is the racial demographic of the people that have received citations?
Out of the 13 tickets, I would say it's almost split down the middle. Give or take one or two.
What?
5 tickets were issued to Caucasians. 1 ticket was issued to someone of Hispanic descent or Latino descent, and 7 tickets were issued to African Americans. And 8 tickets were issued to males, and the rest to females.
And so when we look at the racial demographic of our village, the racial demographic of our village isn't 50 to 50 white to black, is it?
No.
No. So this is why when we talked about this at the first hearing, that I brought up the fact that we do not want our kids stopped, black and brown kids stopped, for purchase and possession of a tobacco product or a tobacco accessory. If the school finds them vaping in the school, I am sure the District 200 or District 97 has their own sort of process of referring people to the township. But I am strongly against when we see what the racial demographic is of people that have received citations. I am strongly against including purchase and possession of tobacco products in this ordinance, and do not think that the board should do it.
Yes, sir.
I'm just thinking for myself. I'm thinking for myself, and I have a 14-year-old son, and if a police officer were to catch him and his friends smoking on the street, I would want, as a parent, want the police to let me know that that was happening and guide him in the right direction. Trustee Walker, Petticoat, what if it were your kid? Would you want, I mean, would you want the police to guide your kid in the right direction, or would you want them to?
No.
What?
No, because that's my job, right? I have a 17-year-old, and that is my job as a parent, is to guide my child in the right direction. That is not the police's job. The police are not my children's parents. And so I think if we're using the police as a parenting tool, we're absolutely using the wrong system.
But I don't think that's what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying if my child who was doing something unbeknownst to me, I would be happy if the police did their job and,
I disagree.
Really?
I mean, we just have a different opinion on it. I mean, these are cigarettes. I mean, who doesn't try cigarettes? I don't want the police hauling my brown child home to me. And I do think that the brown kids are getting pulled over more. I mean, it's not a lot of numbers to make to prove it in this case, but we know it happens. I'd be happy if he's doing opioids and heroin and that stuff, but cigarettes, have them brought home in a squad car for cigarettes?
Well,
no.
Is that necessarily what happens? That's not what I'm hearing. And then I just think that, the old phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And there's resources within the community that could help.
I don't think that village was like the police.
And I think, there's a lot of parents who, I think, and it transcends race, that appreciate services in the community helping their children. Yeah. So I think that we see it from a different angle, and I just think I think a lot of it, again, it transcends race.
Brown children's lives.
I think
I don't think you can speak for
All right,
that.
one
I don't
at a
think
time, one at
I,
a time. Let her finish, and then you can go.
I really don't think you can say this transcends race, that everybody wants a village to raise a child. A village to raise a child is like my grandparents and, you know, my parents and whatever. It does not involve the police. For many, many, many Black and brown families, they fear interactions with the police for good reason. And I'm not saying anything negative about our police department, but they fear interactions with the police for damn good reason. And I don't want any other reason given to pull our kids over and to have interactions with the police that are scary. It causes trauma, and we shouldn't be giving one more reason to cause trauma in our children. We absolutely shouldn't.
Okay, Simone.
If you could, I think part of the difference of opinion may be what these interactions look like. Is it the school resource officer typically that's making these? Like you're saying that the first instance they call the parent and let them know. Are these kids are they not handcuffed in the back of the squad car? They're just describe these interactions if you could.
The typical interaction would be probably with a school resource officer, only because that's where you have most interaction between the officers and kids. It's a ticket, so it would be. Listen, this is against the village ordinance. We would give you some literature on education, and then if that doesn't work, if we have a subsequent contact with you, like the officer would go over the radio and say, I'm stopped with so-and-so. Do we have any previous contacts with this individual? Dispatch would then indicate, yes, we do have a previous contact for tobacco enforcement. Then the officer would issue a ticket, and that child would take that ticket home. We're not handcuffing anybody. We're not arresting anybody. Not going into, not the traditional thought of arrest. They're not getting into a squad car.
Okay.
It's a ticket.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah. A couple comments if there's nobody else.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of in the middle. I'm sensitive to Arthy's point on this, and I don't. I would say if it's illicit drugs, it's one thing. If it's smoking cigarettes and vaping, it's another. And those interactions can be scary, and I agree. And I think there's bigger fish to fry too. But I would be open to the police, instead of having a citation and having go through an adjudication process, I could see a referral slip that's maybe handed to a child and said, hey, look, this isn't great behavior. You know, we have an ordinance. We'd like to give you this referral to a program that might be able to help, you know, in something in a more positive and healthy way, and because I think,
I think your idea, but I think there might be a legal issue with the police adjudicating on the spot.
it's not adjudicating, it's a
But if they
referral.
say, here's the consequence on the spot, I think has to be somebody, I think Paul, right? The police can't say, give me the fine, right?
I mean,
I'm making an
if the police
example,
sees a
right?
kid smoking, why not?
Because the law system has to have somebody deciding something other than the police on the street deciding.
If it's a
So the
citation,
interaction would be,
right.
adjudication would refer, if our ordinance said then, adjudication refers it to a program that's restorative.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Then I would be in favor of nixing it altogether. I agree. I don't think it's our job to police smoking and vaping. Like, I'm sensitive to the number of kids that are doing this. I'm sensitive to the health risks, but I'm also said since day one, it's parents' jobs to raise their kids, and I don't know that I want kids feeling like they're getting in trouble for smoking a cigarette. You know, it's like a lot of peer pressure to do so. I was there. I smoked cigarettes in high school. I couldn't imagine getting a ticket for it. You know, it would just blow my mind. So I'm in favor of taking the adjudication process out.
Yeah, thanks, Dino. And I don't mean any disrespect for the police department. I, of course, am a physician. Smoking is number one cause of most of the causes of death in the U.S. So I don't agree with, I don't want children to get addicted to nicotine because it's so hard to quit. However, I do think the police have better things to do than pulling kids over and ticketing them for smoking cigarettes. So I would really like to see the possession out of this ordinance.
So I have a question also for the village attorney. So, or maybe it's for you, Chief. Don't the police point people toward resources all the time outside of the adjudication process?
Yes.
Okay, so why couldn't we point them to a program like this, the same way that the police point people to resources in other ways? Like, why would, I don't
You're
understand.
not letting them interact at all, right? I think the thing is, this concept of getting pulled over, like you're driving a car or whatever, my thought of this is more about the interactions between the police and the school resource officers.
That's what I'm thinking,
I mean,
too.
the school resource
Right.
officers and the kids, and those are interactions where they usually already know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not envisioning it as, I just support the program. I like programs that solve problems. I like programs that are well developed through public health and people that are the very non-punitive. And I don't necessarily think that if we have a well-trained police department, that our interactions need to be traumatic. I'm hoping that you, Chief, are training your officers for polite and courteous interactions that don't involve trauma. That's very, very important to me. And it's a basis of why I support the police, because I think that in my interactions, this has been the theme of our department since I started working for the village in 2000. So I don't have the feeling that interactions have to be traumatic. I understand there is trauma in the black community with policing, but I charge you not to have that happen in Oak Park. And I support the program because I think it's a public health solution. It's a solution and a referral for people that are, I mean, it's not, this is not jail, it's not arrest, it's not handcuffing. It's, that's where I stand. I like the program and I like the method of referring.
Can I say a follow-up, please? Nobody is saying anything negative about the program. The program exists in the township, and parents can refer their kids to it, as was stated. And the program is great, right? Education is what we want. We want a way to educate our kids. If our kids decide to do stupid stuff, we want a way to educate our kids. What we don't want, and what language isn't in here, is you keep on talking about the school resource officer. It doesn't say that the school resource officer is the one that's going to be interacting with that child. It literally just says it's unlawful for any person under a certain age, 21, to purchase or possess any tobacco product. It doesn't say who is going to be interacting with that child at all. And even if it did, you cannot tell a kid that fears something, that just because you think that that thing interacts in a great way, that it's going to be okay for them. You can't tell a kid that.
All right, so I'm going to say a couple of things and we'll take the roll. I definitely believe that it takes a village to raise a child. That includes neighbors, friends, teachers, police, officers, and I definitely think that it's helpful to have, to accept the ordinance as it is. And I think issuing a citation after exhausting all the other possibilities would force a conversation to take place at home or at school or a neighborhood place. And yes, kids are fragile, but they have to be exposed to the real world and in small doses at a time, I hope. And I do think that it, like right now we have an ordinance to protect the public safety of the children. We have a helmet program that we require the kids and everybody else to be wearing a helmet, and we allow the police officers to be able to stop that child and say, hey, where's your helmet? And I think that, there's a reason why we have these things in place, and the reason is, in my mind and mindset, is to help that child and to protect that child, because these are our children, whether they're brown, they're black, they're Caucasian, or white. These are our children. And this mindset of this happens because so-and-so is black, or because so-and-so is brown, or because so-and-so is white, I just wish that we could just transcend these kind of things and try to come together and and allow everyone to feel that they belong in the Village of Oak Park. Take the roll.
We don't know what we're voting on.
We're voting on the version recommended by the Board of Health. And if that fails, we can vote on the other one.
Are we voting, this is the second reading of this?
Yes.
And so we're voting to pass this ordinance?
We're voting to pass this ordinance.
The ordinance before us, though, I believe is the one where the possession is struck. Is that correct?
Both
Yes.
ordinances were included on the agenda, so I only wonder if, Mayor, you could just see the people that made the motion and second, and I just don't know which one was intended to go first. They were both included in the agenda.
Yeah, so we're going to take a vote on the one that's recommended with the citations in it.
It was,
Board of Health.
is that,
Be
was
clear,
that
that's the
trustee
Board of
Walker and
Health
Andrews'
version.
Board of
intention?
Health version.
That was not my intention, no. My intention was to do the one that village staff has written up that has purchase and possession struck from the ordinance.
Well, if that fails, then we can vote on yours.
It's her move.
It's her motion.
Yes, it's your motion.
You get to decide if you want to pull it, and I have to agree or disagree. Is that correct? Did I second it?
If
Was I the second?
you were the second.
Okay, so Arthi, if you want to remove that and put the version that you want, then I would have to agree with that as a second, which I would. So you get to basically choose which version we would vote on.
So I would choose the version that doesn't have the purchase and possession. I don't know what we're calling that version. That doesn't have purchase and possession on it. I didn't think that was Board. No,
That would
that's
be
not
the
Board of
one-
Health. That's a staff one.
That would be the one as a result of the first reading.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, I would agree with that, and I will re-second with that one.
All right, so
So you're voting on an ordinance that does not have possession
that does
included.
not have possession.
Okay.
Does not have.
Purchase
It
or
doesn't have
possess.
teeth to it.
Removes possession.
Okay, so trustee Walker Pettigotla,
Yes.
trustee Andrews,
Yes.
trustee Boutet,
No.
trustee Buchanan,
Yes.
trustee Maroney,
No.
trustee Taglia,
No.
and Mayor Abu Taleb.
No. Okay,
So I move to adopt the Board of Health recommended with the following amendment to 8.6.15. Instead of reading, it's going to be a long sentence. Instead of reading what it reads now, it would read, any person convicted of violating section 8.6.8 of this article shall be ordered to complete a community-based education, counseling, or treatment program, removing the fine language in that section.
okay, you need a second.
Yeah.
Second.
We got Simone and Dan. All
Sorry, could you
right.
repeat that? I was
Okay,
distracted
so
by my
under the
rage.
version, it's on page 8, under 8.6.15.
We're still on the same ordinance?
Yes.
The other one, the Board of Health, it would say, any person convicted of violating section 8.6.H, which is possession, shall be, and then strike out everything that says not less than 25 nor more than 300, blah, blah, about the second offense, and just have it say, any person convicted of violating section 8.6.8 of this article shall be ordered to complete a community-based education, counseling, or treatment program.
Paul,
Is
you're,
that part A or part B?
Part A.
What about part B?
I think
B
that's,
is for only the sale.
that's the license holders.
That's, yes,
the business.
yes. That's the
So-
fine structure for the businesses. If they-
Paul, say, we're under 8-6-15.
Yes.
And so you are saying that you want to strike out A.
The fines, and just have the consequence be the referral to the FACEIT program, or whatever, I mean, it would be whatever program is in place.
But they would still have to go through adjudication.
You can't order people on the street, like, the police can't just assign a consequence, they have to have a third neutral party. They have the right to plead not guilty, right, they have the right, so it has to.
It can't be the judge also.
Right.
Could
Okay,
they get a voluntary referral? Like, I don't understand why we can voluntarily refer people to other programs through the police, but we can't voluntarily refer somebody to this program.
Well, we don't necessarily,
I mean, we
Well,
refer people to homeless shelters all the time. Like, why couldn't we say?
That's because they're not.
There's not a law against
Oh, yeah,
homelessness.
it's not illegal.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, if it's not a penalty, but a suggestion for going into a program, I don't understand why that's illegal.
Then if, to conform to conduct, you have to have a penalty. It either can't be a
I mean, he's saying,
voluntary.
why can't the police adjudicate them on the street?
Not adjudicate them, say, hey, that's unsafe behavior, here's a program that can help you. Like, that's not, you're not penalizing them, you're making a suggestion to go and check something out, like a website or, yes.
Can I ask you a
Sure.
favor? We have a motion and a second on the table. I'd like to take a vote on that.
Okay.
Trustee Boutet,
Yes.
Trustee Moroni,
Yes.
Trustee Andrews,
No.
Trustee Buchanan,
No.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
Trustee Walker Pitagata,
No.
and Mayor Abutaleb.
Yes,
That's
okay.
to amend?
It's
So we
over.
amended
We're-
it? No, we
it's-
amended. Now we have to vote on the ordinance as amended.
No, that's done.
We've done both.
With, okay.
That was with your.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
we're done. Okay, we're moving on to item